Now we continue, yes, with Conor Mulvihill from Ireland.
Hiya.
Please.
Okay. Tag. Feels like the Eurovision up here.
Yeah.
Just like,
This,
just
all-
down, is it?
as always, all the votes go to Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a million. Thanks a million for inviting me here. I'm delighted to be here in Sweden. Where I work in Brussels, I sublet off the Swedish farm organisation and cooperative agri organisation, LRF, so I'm well used to the Swedes minding me all the time, so hopefully you'll continue this. For me, what I'm going to try to do is maybe a case study, what's happening in Ireland. And we've been very positive about cooperatives, but I want to maybe look at the positive stuff that we're doing in Ireland through our organisation, ICOS, and as you can see, we represent agri and rural cooperatives. We're one pillar of the cooperative society in Ireland, but the strongest one, in my opinion. But I also want to address some failures. Like, certainly we do not in ICOS see cooperatives as a silver bullet for everything. It is an outstanding business model, but it's not there for everything, and it has failed. So we have to address these failures as well and see why. So hopefully that will be covered as well, and what we're doing to address why some cooperatives have failed in Ireland. So maybe just a bit about myself. I'm the Brussels manager. So from a day-to-day work is actually lobbying, mostly for cooperative businesses. So you can smell the sulfur off me. I'll put the tail in. Don't worry about it. We'll be talking about cooperative farm today. So I want to give you a brief picture of cooperative society in Ireland. I want to address what I've just talked about, and then finally just see what we're doing in ICOS to initiate some sort of change. Who are we? We're founded in the late 19th century by an Anglo-Irishman called Sir Horace Plunkett. We currently represent going on towards 140 co-ops in Ireland, but in terms of the agri side, we have about 150,000 individual members. We have 12,000 Irish employees with 24,000 overseas. Ireland as an agri economy is very export orientated, and these co-ops have driven on into massive expansion overseas by changing their model and innovating. And we've combined global sales of our membership of 14 billion euros, which for a small, tiny economy out in the west of the Atlantic isn't so bad. And the key to the cooperative success story in Ireland is milk. Milk. 98% of the milk produced in Ireland is within the cooperative model, and actually, ironically, that 2% you might ask, where the hell is it? It's actually in the organic sector, the one that you think would be naturally prone to cooperative organisation, but they're in a private company. So just in terms of our governance, we have a 13-member board. Our chairman is Martin Keane from Glanbia, and in terms of the internal, this is just ICOS alone, we have three kind of internal committees: dairy, livestock, and then finally cooperative business would be the three people. Offices in Ireland and Brussels, we've only 14 staff, and we're members of Kooperativa, which is the European Umbrella Association of Agri-Cooperative Representative Organisations and Farmer Cooperatives. So there's sometimes a little friction there in terms of the work I'd be doing, and I think it was addressed at times. There are some of our brands. You might recognise some of them, you might not, but they're mostly in the agri sector, producer-orientated cooperatives, but also a lot of service-orientated cooperatives servicing the agri industry. So we do work around both figures. So it could be livestock marts, genetics, group water schemes, farm accountants. Milk is a big thing, and we're doing some work around energy, Irish country markets, things like that. So we're very wide, and we look at it in terms of our own services. My section would do a lot on policy and markets, kind of spot fixes for the cooperative business, and trying to advocate the co-op form as being kind of articulated by UCA. We also do a lot of developmental work. The one on the left there is the Irish Foundation for Cooperative Development. So we have a charity that works in Africa, works in Asia, trying to develop cooperative forms out there, and we get funding for our co-ops as part of the corporate social responsibility initiatives. And then the Golden Jubilee Trust is the charity we have within ICOS, but it's an independent board and everything like that to try and develop cooperative initiatives internally in Ireland. Then again, harking back to UCA's presentation, training and governance is the core for us in terms of, so we have the ICOS skill net for cooperative staff, and then the Plunkett Institute, which is a newly launched institute, and I'll go into later to talk about training cooperative directors and giving opportunities for all members to try and move away. Let's say I'm a beef farmer from the southwest of Ireland in Limerick, and my skill is producing beef, organic beef as it happens. But do I have the skill set to run a business, the financial piece, the political piece, the strategic piece, the governance piece, the legal piece, the taxation piece? All these pieces of a jigsaw I would need to be able to run a business if I want to be the owner of that business. So we're trying to drive to address this. Down at the bottom you see the kind of sectors that we're in. We're trying to move into advisory education, do a little piece in stores and trades, and also laterally some culture and community stuff like community shops, community pubs. This is a new phenomenon in Ireland. Ireland is a very community-orientated society, but certainly we see a flight away. We've seen what we've seen across Europe, a move away from country societies to urban societies, and what can we do, and how can the cooperative model address that? Just finally, we also do some company stuff within ICOS. We do pensions for our cooperatives, cooperative staff and cooperative executives in the DEA. We do a cooperative around milk quality. As you see, dairy is going to be a big part of this presentation. And cooperative source in terms of inputs. We do a lot of work trying to get cooperatives working together to kind of reduce inputs, costs, coming together in a buying group, and that'd be another thing within ICOS. So that's basically what we're doing. It's a lot with only 14 staff, as you can imagine. This is the man who founded us. He's our Raffison, I suppose. I'm sure you have someone in Sweden who founded it. But just to run through it, as you see, there used to be 1,000 societies, 90,000 members. Very much concurrent with our independence movement at the end of the 19th century, start of the 20th century. It's certainly forgotten about these days that how important the cooperative movement was to give Irish people a sense of their own economic independence, because for centuries they were essentially used as a breadbasket of the UK. I'm sorry, Gareth. But we'll go on, and that story has continued over the 20th century with successes and failures, and we'll go on. So this would be a typical Irish co-op at the turn of the century. This is one down in Waterford in the extreme south of Ireland. So you have maybe a cooperative business, and you see the Creamery there to the left. So they were very small, but they very much grew into the big dairy companies that we see in Ireland today. So sectors, the dairy cooperative, I make no bones about, is 85% of our activity. That's why I see myself in my day-to-day job as a dairy lobbyist nearly, but with a cooperative orientation. We have 10 milk processors. 2 are very interesting because they're hybrid cooperative PLCs. So the co-op and the PLC run together, and they're the actual ones who've expanded for the most part into internationally in terms of Kerry Group and Glanbia. So the cooperative is still there 100%, but it runs concurrently a PLC to get private investment for their overseas activities. We still have 17 smaller purchaser co-ops. We have a very interesting co-op called Ornua, which is a dairy marketing brand. Some of you would know the Irish butter brand called Kerry Gold, which is a very famous brand. It's the #1 butter brand in Germany. The #1 butter brand in Germany from Ireland. Not imported butter, full stop. And that is a marketing co-ops of co-ops. So as you can see the different models that are employed in Ireland. And we're responsible for 3 billion of dairy exports alone. Exports, not even what we're selling to our own tiny domestic markets. And also another important thing about these dairy co-ops, they're not dairy alone. A lot of them are multi-purpose. They have stores, they have grain, they do services. So they're multi-purpose co-ops. And a lot of the academic literature I would read would say that's not the way to go. You should only focus your cooperative one. Well, Ireland has proven that perhaps maybe that's this kind of literature that comes out of America isn't that accurate, maybe in practice. Other sectors, we have livestock auction markets developed in the 50s as a response to factories essentially scalping farmers. So farmers came together to develop their own markets for live exports. Then artificial insemination companies, secondary cooperatives that are owned by dairy societies to try and increase our technology and adoption of genetic technology, etc. Breed societies related. These are kind of the other subsectors: agri-retail stores, energy, forestry, group water schemes, fisheries, rural co-ops, services, communities. That's areas where Ireland is trying to get into. And again, very interesting to see Yuka talk about it. This is a recent success story of the last 20 years in terms of delivering services to rural communities and group water scheme cooperatives. And when I started in Co-op, I'm a member of one of these in Ireland. I'm a member of my credit union. I didn't know these were co-ops. I didn't have a clue until I started in ICOS. So the cooperative movement is more deeply rooted across Europe, I would imagine. So moving on very quickly, just maybe to talk about the failures. All this talk, I talk about Ireland as a very advanced, for our size, agriculture economy, but there's no meat processing co-op left. They're all in private hands. So I'm going back to Conor Mulvihill out in Limerick, doing his organic beef farm. I have to take the price to whatever factory I sell. That is total anathema in terms of a country that supposedly has a developed agricultural cooperative ethos. There's no meat processors left in the cooperative form. Why is this? There's a load of reasons. Were we too inefficient? Were we too slow? Were we too honest? Were we always just trying to do the right thing by the farmer and not looking after the profit margin? Was there a lack of profitability? Were we not focused and driven enough? Was there lack of innovation? Were we unable to take a tough stance with the bigger members and there was nod and wink deals at the back? These are issues. And co-ops have also totally failed, bar one exception, in the fruit and veg sector in Ireland. It staggers me to this day. Ireland is associated with the potato, as a lot of you would know, and we don't have any potato co-op. All these potato growers compete with each other. And like when we try to get together in producer group, cooperative forms, they'll cut each other's throat for the sake of €5 a tonne. Why is it successful in milk? A lot of people, let's say older people, a lot longer involved in the co-op to me, is farmers are selfish. I know that myself. But also milk is perishable, so they're forced together more so. Anyway, I suppose what are we doing? So what other problems is there? I think we as a movement has stagnated for 30 years. We now have a lot of cooperative boards are full of old people. When I go around Ireland and I go in, I look at these old, male, stale and beyond the pale, I suppose is the way to put it. Men in diamond jumpers, missing teeth, grey hair, that's what I'm looking down at most time. So this is really worrying because in Ireland there's been a total regeneration of the agricultural industry because of a recession at the end of the 2000, from 07 to maybe 2 years ago. Now we're in a recovery phase, a very strong recovery phase, and now you got all the agricultural colleges in Ireland are packed out with loads of these entrepreneurs, and they're entrepreneurs, they're running farm businesses themselves, and they're totally commercially orientated, they're scientifically orientated, and now there's a gap after forming in the cooperative movement in terms of who's representing these, and they're looking at what I'm looking at and going, what the hell? How are these people supposed to drive on my business? So as you see, some of the statistics are stark. We have only 14% of milk suppliers between the ages of 18 to 39. And you have a big, massive wedge of people in the green and red zones who are, I don't know, do they represent what is needed for a modern agricultural society? So you have the over 55s and the under 35s. And the under 35s aren't engaged with the co-op. They're very commercial. They're the ones who are willing to talk about risk in terms of other areas that were. And then you have the Owl Boys Brigade, which is good. You always need a mix, but when it's kind of monocultural, no women, no young people, and they say, well, why should we engage with the co-op? And that's where ICOS has to come in, and has to come in strongly. I presume a lot of these problems would also be reflected across Europe and across sectors. It's not just agri-sectors as well. So I suppose, what can we do about it? And it's about reaching out, as we've discussed. Show the young farmers that the cooperative enterprise model can reach the scale of their ambition. That is massively important to us. And that, from an ICOS perspective, it's for us governance, and skilling. Governance and skilling. And this goes back to maybe the two subgroups of ICOS, the Skillet and the Plunkett Institute, which sounds very like what you're doing in Finland, Jukka. And so we can be able to demonstrate the investment, get people involved and professionalize the government function and let people not just be involved, but be trained up to be involved in terms of their cooperative. So as I said, we've tried to establish a professional institute for cooperative governance, work on our principles, update them, look for enforceable codes of conduct, develop entry-level training programs, continuing professional development, university-level programs, and most of all, we have to get out. The people of ICOS and the people of the cooperatives have to get out and meet the young farmers, meet the young producers, meet the young social entrepreneurs across rural Ireland to see, okay, this is what we can offer, this is what the model can offer. It's pointless just sitting in my ivory tower in Brussels, or the boys in Dublin and the boys in Cork just sitting in and doing stuff on websites. It's important, but if you don't get out, you're not going to do it. So what we're doing is trying to reach out to them in training programs, these young people who are kind of coming out of ag college. We developed this Plunk Institute of Cooperative Governance. There's institutes springing up all over the place, so why not in cooperative affairs? Why not add value? Because at the moment, there's little respect to be part of a cooperative director. You know, it's really kind of dissipated. Now what we want to do is make it professional, make it something that people want to do, make it ongoing, that people have to keep training to keep their position within as a cooperative director. And essentially, you see it there: identifying, promoting, encouraging excellence in cooperative governance. That's where I'll leave it now, and thanks, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Conor.